Greetings, I'm Jim Taylor. Thanks for joining me and In Favor Resources in the final installment of this 7-part video teaching series titled Prophecy is for You, because it is. It's for you and me and all of us, and we're hoping to help you understand prophetic words, understand how to receive them from others, and how to give them to others through this series. Now, in our first post, we learned that God speaks to us in many ways. In fact, He's speaking to us all the time. In the second post, what is prophecy? It's when we hear a message from God and we pass it on to someone else. In the third, how the New Testament gift of prophecy is very, very much different than the Old Testament office of prophet. And a lot of the confusion has come from not understanding that those two are very different. In the fourth post, well, what good does prophecy do? What's the result of a legitimate word of prophecy? A word of prophecy encourages and strengthens and comforts the hearers. And we all should want that. We are to eagerly desire it and seek after, Paul says, especially the gift of prophecy. In the fifth post, can I prophesy if I don't have the gift? Yes, you can. Everyone can hear from the Holy Spirit. What will it feel like or look like or sound like if I do? I gave an example of giving a brief prophetic word to a person standing in front of you at the grocery store. In the last post, well, what can I do with the word that somebody gives me? How can I steward that? How can I press into it? And we gave you 12 suggestions for doing so. So in today's teaching, we close out this series with this. What if I'm not sure it's really God who is prompting me to speak? What if it's just my imagination? And a very, very pertinent and perplexing question, what if I mess up? What if I get it wrong? So here are 7 suggestions for if you have doubts, and doubts are very good and very healthy, by the way. So if you're struggling with part of this, this is good. It's part of the process. Doubts are good. Here are 7 suggestions for when you have them. First, pray for discernment. Ask, Lord, is this you? What is it that you want me to do? What is it you want me to say? Is it your voice I'm hearing? And I believe that God will answer you because He wants you to hear His voice and to respond in obedience. He wants you to know what His voice sounds like. This is what Jesus said in John 10. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of his sheep, and the watchman opens the gate for him. And the sheep listen to His voice. He calls His sheep by name and leads them out. And when He has brought them out, He goes ahead of them, and His sheep follow Him because they know His voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from Him because they do not recognize His voice. Then Jesus concluded, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. So if you pause and pray, you will have a peace that God is speaking to you or not. So pray for discernment. Number 2, check your motives. If you're having doubts, check your motives. Why are you doing this? If you are truly hearing from the Lord, you will not be speaking out of a spirit of pride or anger or criticism or self-interest or legalism or competition. On the contrary, you will recognize this as a privilege that is not to be abused. This is not a chance for you to hold a microphone and be in front of people and stand in the spotlight. That's not what this is for. Your desire will be to obey God and to help others, and you will have a servant's heart. So ask yourself, would I be just as excited about this if I had to hand this off and let somebody else deliver the message? Check your motives. Number 3, look at the response to your word. Now, I realize that this doesn't help you until after you've already stepped off the cliff. You won't know the response until you've given the word and it's been received. But you can look back at your last word or your last series of words and see if there's a pattern that develops. Have you really heard from God? Did people respond in a way that confirmed that? Did this word sound like those? Did it have the same tone? Did it have the same authority, the same sense of encouragement about it, or not? Your words should be agreeable to others, and the hearers ought to be glad to accept them, and you can be sure that the results will turn out to be positive fruit in everyone's life. So look at the response. And number 4 is a big one. Don't worry too much that this might just be your imagination. Anyone who has ever received a prophetic word has sometimes wondered, what if this one is just me? What if it's my voice I'm hearing? What if these are my thoughts and not God's thoughts? And this is a possibility. And so sometimes we want something to be true so bad. We're at somebody's bedside and we're just wanting so much for God to raise them up. And our desires loom so large that we interpret those as God's voice. I realize that is possible. But remember, God speaks to your mind. He's using your imagination. He's speaking in your thoughts. So, of course, it's going to sound like you. As Carol Lopp often says in her classes on the Holy Spirit, well, who else would it sound like? It's the Holy Spirit in your mind, in your thoughts. Of course, it's going to sound like you. After all, God is using your mind to communicate with you and others, and He's employing your imagination, your knowledge, your experience. So this is not some kind of alien thought or some kind of unfamiliar voice. It's God speaking to you, in you, and through you. It will sound very much like you. Number 5, if you're still unsure, share the word with someone you respect before you give it publicly, especially if you're in a church worship service or a large crowd. Ask them to weigh it and to give you their impression if you have doubts about it. It would also be acceptable to wait until the service is over and then go approach that person privately and communicate the message to them. And that's okay. The only drawback to that is that the entire church wasn't edified by seeing God at work in this miraculous way as you shared the message from God with them and strengthened them and encouraged them and comforted them. That's the only drawback to that. Number 6, it's never a bad idea to introduce your words humbly by saying something like this: I feel like I should say something to you, or I think the Lord would want you to know, or it seems like the Lord wants me to tell you. Don't march in, wave your finger, and shout and say, "Thus saith the Lord," because you are not an Old Testament prophet. And if you need to, go back and review the 3rd post in this series, and you'll find out why. Your humility will not take away from the power of your prophetic word. You don't have to shout to have a powerful prophetic word. In fact, your humility will add to the power of your word because it's going to give more of the attention to God, which is where it belongs in the first place. Finally, after all this, I just want to say, relax and go for it. Just do it. You can hardly go wrong if what you're saying is going to be strengthening and encouraging and comforting to those who hear it. God does not want you to worry about this or obsess over it. He will supply the message, He will lead you to the right person at the right time, and He will help you deliver it. So just relax. Give God the steering wheel. Give God the keys. You sit in the passenger seat and see where He takes you. I want to spend a little bit of time before we sign off on this one dealing with this anxious question: what if I do mess up? What if I get it wrong? I see the power of prophecy and I see the value it brings to the searching soul and to the church, but what if I try and I'm mistaken or I'm inaccurate? What if it doesn't make any sense to the person? This could be embarrassing, and it could even be harmful and destructive. You know, I believe that the more sensitive you are, the larger this question will loom for you. So in a sense, it's a compliment to you and to your spirit that you're even wondering this. You're concerned about the people who will be hearing your word, and you want what's best for them. That's a good thing about you. But wait. Please remember, as we said before, that when we give prophetic words, we're expressing in human words thoughts that God has brought to our mind. And we are all human, and we all can, and we all do, and we all will make occasional mistakes. But then so do apostles and evangelists and teachers and administrators and everyone else who's operating in any spiritual gift. We all make mistakes. Remember, these spiritual gifts are given to us to use for others, even if we sometimes make a mistake. So even if you did blow it this time, listen, get up, Dust yourself off and get right back into the game. Our goal isn't perfection, it's ministry. Our goal isn't perfection, it's ministry. And if your voice is silent, someone out there is missing out. As with most things, the more you practice, the better you'll be, so get out there and practice and practice and practice. But I want you to consider something else. What if you really didn't mess up? I mean, maybe the person didn't understand it. Maybe they didn't think it was for them. But what if you actually got it right? Are you sure you messed up? Because the person who received it, and even you as the giver, may not be aware of all the circumstances. Even though it didn't seem to fit their current situation, it could be that your word applies to circumstances in their life that have not yet been revealed. Or it may to apply to them now, but they won't understand it until later. Or it could also be that you had the right word, but the interpretation was not accurate, and more time and more discernment will be necessary. Now, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. But let me just give you an example. A few years ago, a woman with a very strong prophetic gift gave me a word, and she said, I see you sitting at a table with business people, and they are leaning forward and they're listening to you as if they're learning something from you. I believe you're going to have a ministry on the business mountain. On the way home from that meeting, my wife asked me in the car, well, what did you think about that prophetic word she gave you? And I said, oh, I think she got it wrong. I don't know anything about business. I'm not interested in business. There's no way I could advise anybody about business. I have no desire to be involved in business. Now, she blew it on that one. I was sure she was wrong. But then a small group of us founded our nonprofit organization called City Changers. We founded it a couple years later, and by that time, my circumstances had changed. One of the first things we did was join the local Chamber of Commerce because it was a tremendous opportunity to network and to meet with people in the charitable and business worlds, and it was a great way to get across our message of community transformation. Well, several years after the prophecy, my circumstances have greatly changed. I'm now a chamber director. I sit across the table and I talk with business people several times a week. And they're interested in what I have to say because I'm not talking about business to them. That part hasn't changed. I have nothing to advise for a businessman. I'm talking about how to make our community a better place to live. And many business people are very interested in that. I've been the speaker at chamber functions. We're working together to make our community a better place. And business people are listening to me just like the prophecy said. I didn't get it at the time. She hadn't missed it at all. It came true, but my circumstances had to change first, and I had to grow into that prophecy. Well, this is the end of the last installment in the 7 videos on Prophecy is for You. If you sat through all 7 of these, I just want to say thanks, and there must be a special place in heaven for you. Just in case anybody is still asking, oh man, this just sounds too complicated. I don't know. Do I really want to get involved in this? The answer is yes. Yes, yes, you do. Listen to the Apostle Paul. Listen to the Holy Spirit. Listen. Seek this gift, especially the gift of prophecy. That feeling that you're going to have to think, I just heard a message from God. And God used me to speak it to someone else. And when you see that person who says, God just spoke to me, listen, that feeling can change your day, it can change your understanding, it can change your plans, it can even change your life. It's not without reason that Paul told us to seek the gift of prophecy above all other gifts. We should all be going after this one. I can't wait to hear how God is using you personally to strengthen and encourage and comfort His church. Send me a message through the website or on Facebook. I'd love to know that you're putting these things into practice and you're seeing God use you in this wonderful, amazing, mind-blowing, miraculous way. I'm glad and grateful to be working with all of you to bring Indiana farther into her prophetic destiny. and closer to God's favor. And thank you so much for joining me. Remember the YouTube channel, remember the website, infavorresources.com, and visit us on our Facebook page. I'm signing off now until the next series, and I hope you'll join me for that one. We'll see you then.